Hey there, internet friends. Welcome to another episode of That Nerdy Site Show, weekly podcast where the team members from that nerdy site get together to talk about our lives and all of the nerdy things we love about them. I'm your host, Trevor Starkey, and joining me today, fresh back from PAX West, Cameron Abbott. How you doing, Cameron?
It wasn't Morgana. It was me, Cameron, all along.
Yeah, shocking. We were just talking about Cam Hawkins, so I almost said Cam Hawkins, though.
That's fair. That's fair.
So, oops. Today is going to be basically a special. We're recording this literally the day Cam got back. We may put it up early and just do a regular episode next week, or we may just hold this till next Monday, our usual release time. But this is going to be all about everything Cam played at PAX and his just general PAX trip. So Cam, I guess, normal rigmarole. If you like what you hear, please remember to like, subscribe, rate, review, share the podcast, all that fun stuff, everywhere you can. All right. So Cam, we got a whole list of games that you're going to talk through. But first, I just kind of want to get your overall general, how was PAX vibes?
How was PAX? PAX was pretty awesome, to say the least. To say the most, I actually had a very great time. I was lucky enough to spend a lot of time with some folks that we haven't seen for a while. I haven't seen for a while, Cam Hawkins in particular. Shout out to him for the hookup with the room. I roomed with him, Finn from STGC, as well as a guy named Brandon who does some work. You know, he's a regular contributor for places like, GameSpot, as well as a few other places he has some bylines with. So another freelancer. We all buddied up, 4 people to a room. It was really nice. Awesome guys, spending time with them. It was also me, a single dude, rooming with 3, happily married men. And so it was a lot of just, husband stuff. But not really. Mostly it was games. There was some mention of my wife, and I struggled so hard not to just do my wife jokes the entire weekend. It was difficult.
Thank you for that, Borat. I'm so glad that is the immediate go-to when people say my wife, all these years later. So good. I'm glad you were able to go. Glad you had a good time. Sad I wasn't there, but also, okay that I wasn't there. I enjoyed my quiet time here back at the house, all on my lonesome, just playing a crap ton of Baldur's Gate 3. Finish the game. We will have to at some point, because you even as we're talking about this, you and I have not had a download of the ending of the game and all that stuff. So we'll have to do a full Baldur's Gate 3 spoiler cast at some point. But yes, let's dive through and just kind of run down a lot of the games you played here. It looks like I'm looking at, probably 18 games here, I think, or something like that. And this is specifically after I was like, hey, Cam, go spend time and have fun with people.
I did.
Play less. Don't worry about trying to play a billion things there, you did at PAX East a couple years ago. So, this is just me piecing together. Oh, he didn't really listen to me at all.
No, I mean, to be fair, 5 of those games were at one appointment. So,
and I'm guessing a lot of this was just wandering the show floor and seeing what looked interesting, as opposed to you had appointments for all these games.
A good chunk of it, yeah. If there's content around it, I had an appointment with it, or if it sounded if the day before I got an appointment, a notice for, hey, they want appointments. I checked that out. Not everything I saw or did is going to be thoroughly covered. I kind of took a stronger point to really focus on stuff that I thought was interesting. There just happened to be a lot of stuff that was interesting to me this year. I will say that, 5 of those games are at one appointment. 2 of them are at another single appointment. These are not I did not have a billion appointments. I had plenty of time in between to just check out stuff. I will say a big part of it, probably my first day or 2, and this is kind of to the point of what was the feel of it. 1, I've never run a pack solo before. That was a new experience for me.
Mm-hmm.
And 2, I had a lot of anxiety. This was my first big event back at any place. There was a lot of people, a lot of like stuff going on. It was overwhelming for a good chunk of it, but luckily I found my footing with the help of a lot of folks out there. Shout out to everybody who like reminded me that, hey, even no matter how much the gaming industry can change as far as faces go, and like people in different positions in different places, the overall spirit of games media and everything is super joyful and enthusiastic and like just humbling and grateful and awesome and willing just to like be there for people. Overall, just awesome time meeting new people, seeing old friends, and just getting to check out some really awesome games. So
nice. All right. Well, let's kick it off with first things first. Persona 3 Reloaded, which I can actually like. I now have context for this game since I played the P3P version earlier this year. So what was how's this looking? How's this feeling for you?
Well, I'll say first off, I can confirm that despite everything they've done, it will still only be the second best Persona 3 version. P3P will maintain itself as the best version due to the female protagonist not being an option here in Reloaded. However, it was pointed out to me that Atlas loves to do like a Royale style thing, like do an update here or there. Mm-hmm. And so it's not necessarily out of the possibility that we might see that at a later update or something.
Sure.
In which case it would, I think, be the superior version. Combat is upgraded to what you'd expect from a modern Persona game. Cleared up a lot of the monotony, has a lot of the like fast forward effects of like, if I just want to skip through this battle and just have auto attacks go off, like that is all built into it. I will say what was really great to see is the new voice cast they have doing this game. It's all really awesome. They all stand out as very true to the characters. I think the direction on this game, as far as vocals go, is spot on. I'm really enjoying seeing kind of like, what were the kind of like the standard voice actors of the time that Persona 3 came out, have now kind of like, they have almost like a fresh breath of air for the characters and the characterization. I feel like it's at a higher performance level. From just the brief, like I saw 15 minutes of the game. And they asked, do you want to say the like going around doing stuff and like, seeing the improvements to the kind of like exploration, or do you want to see the improvements to like battle and combat? And I opted for battle and combat. And just like, I had a really good time with it. I think it's still like, it helps that it's more than just a fresh coat of paint, but I will also say that it's not as intrinsic to the elevation that you see from Persona 4 to Persona 5. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have the vibe and like vastness that Persona 5's combat has. So I think if people are expecting that from it, they might be disappointed. I know I was not disappointed, but I was like, oh, okay, I thought this would be like a real overhaul of like the systems of Persona 3, but instead I think they stayed true to the original systems that you get in the Fez edition of the game. So overall, really good time with it, but it was very limited, very short.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Is it something you think you'll pick up when the time comes, or are you good with, jumping into, if you really want to do P3, just jumping into one of the, Game Pass versions that they put out?
That's a great question. I don't know. I'm not excited to hop into it right away. Mm-hmm. But then again, Persona 3 was not like my first Persona, and it is not even in my like top 2 Persona games. It is a game I think that's very special for the people who were there at the time of its release. And I think it does a really great stuff with its story. But I think when you and I talked about Persona 3 after you played through P3P, I think that your kind of critiques of that game, I don't know if those will be remedied in this version of the game.
Is it still awkward as hell? Just every fight starting with, and most things in the fights being like kids shooting themselves in the head?
that doesn't change. In fact,
it's still there and awkward as fuck.
Oh, I mean, they do a way of like not focusing so much on the gun. Like the gun is just like very much just there for the overall scene. They're true to that, like the spirit of what it was supposed to be like, but not as like visceral and like focusing up and like zooming in on the gunshot. They don't do that this time around, which I think is better.
I mean, at least what I remember from P3P, like they don't like they focus on it when they introduce it in the game, but it wasn't like a focal point of combat.
No, kids are still shooting themselves in the head. Yeah,
it is
kids are
still just, if I want to cast this spell, I'm shooting myself in the head, and the persona is popping up behind me or whatever.
That's happening. That's still happening.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, and moving on to your next one is one I'm interested in. Foamstars. Very interested in this largely because remember when it first got unveiled, everybody was like, why is Square Enix doing a Splatoon thing? This looks really lame as hell. But then when people got hands-on with it, they're like, actually, it's really cool. Do you fall kind of in that camp? Did it win you over?
A little bit. My biggest concern is I look at the longevity of this game. Yeah. I don't think this game has legs.
Oh no, I don't think so. Square Enix has like failed miserably at like the games as service types of games, and they routinely show that they are not interested in supporting them for long haul. Given it seems every few months a game that you may or may not have known about that they've been doing just ends after about a year.
Yeah, I'd say. If there was a test case for success, it was Marvel Avengers, and that lasted what, a year and a half, 2 years?
Marvel's Avengers was probably, I think it was 3 years. Before they finally pulled the. I mean, like it had regular content for maybe the first 6 months, and then it was like drips of stuff until they finally basically pulled the plug on it.
I don't want to say like Foamstars is being pushed out to die, but. It had representation there. It had like, I literally got grabbed from the floor during media hour. They're like, hey, do you want to play Foamstars? I was like, sure. And they put me next to a kiosk, and sure enough, standing right next to me was Finn from SDGC. He goes, oh, hey. I was like, hey. He goes, you get pulled over here too? I was like, yeah. They're like, yeah, let's go ahead and let's give it a shot. So I picked like this dapper looking gentleman that had like this like heavy cannon. I will say it's way less focused on like gunplay like you get from Splatoon, where like different weapons are kind of the focus of it and like leveling up those weapons. And more of an interest is more on the individual abilities, a la like Overwatch. Different weapons still, like different characters still have different playing styles, but it's really more focused on the abilities and how the abilities work. It was a little rough to kind of get my head around because I'm not like a big Splatoon player to begin with, and it doesn't really have a lot of like the charging requirements that Splatoon has, but it is really fun to like dick around with and like move through and like, blow people up with foam, like with foam guns. That's fun. But yeah, it does have like a sense of like, you want team coordination. It makes killing people easier, but like this just really isn't my cup of tea. I'm really not into it, but at the same time, like, I can see this being one of those games that people are like, some people really attach themselves to, and then are really sad when it eventually just loses its support.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. We're done with Foamstars now. First Dwarf. Tell me about this one. I know nothing about this game.
Yeah. So First Dwarf is from Star Drifters. They're an independent studio. They actually had a previous game that came out like 2016, 2017. That was an RTS game, real-time strategy game. This is set in that same universe, but it's a completely different style of game. Oop, almost lost the sunglasses there. I'll just set them down here. It was a really cool third-person, kind of like, how do I put this? It's set in the universe of their RTS title, and their gameplay is broken up into like 3 different sections. There's the mech stuff that is building, resource gathering, and combat. There's the dwarf, which is like you hop out. You are the dwarf piloting the mech, and then you hop out. You make some repairs to the mech as it's been damaged, and then you hop back in it. And then there's the dragon, which is your dragon companion that you have that you send off to do scouting and has some minor combat actions that it can do. However, I found out from the developer that it actually is also if you want to play couch co-op, that's your second player. So if you're playing 2 players, second player is mostly doing some scouting around, scouting out resources, finding them for you, and then also like, burning fire down on enemies to help support you. So it is much more of a support role, not exactly like what you probably would want from like an equivocable sort of 2-player mode. Equitable? Is that what I'm looking for?
I think so, yeah.
Sorry, I'm still in post PAX like haze, mental haze.
I mean, yeah, it sounds like it's less oh, you're playing like 2-player, like a Lego game or something like that, where
Yeah.
you're both doing the same thing, and it's more like, oh, you're the second player in in Super Mario Galaxy. You're just the thing going around and collecting stars.
I would say
It's a little bit.
Yeah.
It's in between those two things.
Absolutely. I would definitely say it's between those. I think it's more on the action front because you're, as a dragon, you can just like go further away from the dwarf if you want. No problem. And then like there's a good like when you're playing solo, if you're doing that, you're scouting, there's a good like recall thing that you can do to just hop back into the mech. The systems are really good there. It still has a lot of, I think, some polish to it that it still needs. I know it's like they said, it's TBA right now as far as like when it's to be announced, but you're basically
like a release date kind of stuff.
Yeah, release date wise, it's still
like, to be announced. Well, the game's clearly announced. You were playing it.
Oh, sorry, TBD then.
Yeah.
To be determined. Like when they're gonna. When I say TBA, I meant more like the announcement is to be announced. Like they haven't announced a date that it's coming out yet. But yeah, I think the overall basically the gameplay is about expelling like corruption. There's like some corruption going on there. You are like resourcing mana and other like natural resources to build settlements. You're on floating islands. They've been developing this game for years, and back in the RTS game, they also had floating islands. The person there made a joke like, "We've had floating islands since before Zelda." It's like, okay, all right. But overall, I think the actual gameplay of that game is a lot of fun.
So it like before Skyward Sword?
Yeah, before Skyward Sword.
Cool.
But not really, no. Back to that point though, the islands are important because the land has become like super corrupted and non-viable to live on, and so you're trying to like scout out new settlements for dwarves. And that's just kind of what you're doing, and you're uncovering like these sky islands. You're uncovering like a greater mystery behind them, and the demo literally ends with you like revealing a pretty big plot twist about like what this dwarf story is, and the idea of like what it means to like what it might mean to be exploring these, like exploring it out. And there's even like some meta commentary about like, hey, if I didn't find this item, there's no way we could continue on traveling this way. It feels like weird that it's also perfect for my mech. And the dragon goes, it is super, and the dragon brings that up and is like, and the dwarf goes, yeah, no, it's super weird. Like what's going on these islands? And so that's kind of like where the demo ended. A lot of fun. I enjoy the fact that like your resource building is focused on sustainability, like sustaining like a settlement there, and not so much as like, I'm going to tear down all the resources and do this. Instead, it's like, hey, put down like a thing to acquire resources, and you'll get resources over time slowly, rather than just depleting all the resources on there, like on the area.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a bit more of like a point towards, hey, like slower and more consistent over just like wiping everything else out. Not as sort of like a gameplay like element, or it's a gameplay element, but it's not like a thematic element of the game. At least not yet, from what I saw. But yeah, good game.
Yeah. I realized just because like I think your glasses were falling off, and I'm realizing, we're gonna get to almost the end of your list of games before your hat gets explained. So
yeah.
so yeah, there's for audio listeners, Cam's wearing a sailor's hat, and it's just there.
I will say, so for the first two games that I talked about, I don't have any video or any kind of content you can expect any more on. But for this one, there is a bit of a dev interview that I'll be intersplicing some gameplay with going forward. So,
okay.
Yep, expect a little bit of content coming from that.
We'll see. Yeah, we'll see. Either I don't know where you're planning on doing that, if you're doing this stuff in just like TikTok land, or if you're planning on doing YouTube videos and stuff. But
YouTube Shorts probably for it. The interview is only like a minute and a half, so
cool. All right. Moving on. I believe you wrote Warhammer 30K Rogue
Oh, sorry,
Trader,
meant 40K.
I was gonna say I'm pretty sure it's
40K.
Warhammer 40K.
Sorry. That's a typo on the typing, not on my notes here, so we're good.
Yeah. So Warhammer 40K Rogue Trader. Oh, real quick back on First Dwarf. Are you like, is it a game you're going to be like keeping your eye on?
I'll be keeping my eye on it. I think it'd be a really fun game to play in the downtime where maybe not a lot of other stuff is going on. If it came out like this year, probably wouldn't get to it next year. Like I could definitely see myself hopping into it a little bit.
Okay. All right. Then yeah, moving on to Warhammer 40K Rogue Trader. Tell me about this one. And also, does this fall in the realm of like mechy Warhammer 40k stuff or like fantasy Warhammer 40k stuff?
So Warhammer is the fantasy element.
Okay, 40K
Warhammer
is
40k
the
is the like tech stuff, the like space stuff, sci-fi.
Gotcha. Okay.
So this is set in the 40k universe. This is from the same studio that made a game that I talked about last year, Pathfinder: Wrath of the Righteous.
Mm-hmm.
I talked about that quite a bit while I was playing through it. It's the same studio, Owlcat Studios. I was really excited to see them taking on something like Warhammer 40k. As somebody who's like very low level, entry level, like Warhammer lore interest, like I was very fascinated by like what I saw when I pulled up the website for Rogue Trader and like what is going on in it. I was like, what are these Xenos races doing in here? So like I got to, this was a like 30-ish minute interview with the dev to kind of like go over the game itself, as well as like what the process was like working with Games Workshop, GW, and just getting to kind of get deep into Duffy on kind of the intricacies of like how they went about crafting the game Rogue Trader, which is a tabletop like variant of Warhammer 40k, and taking that into exploring the game and creating the universe around it.
Real quick,
yeah,
you said it. I know. I hear Mike and now like Nick Scarpino say it. What the hell is in the Duffy?
Oh, it just means like being really deep, like really interested in something, or really like knowledgeable about something, or
what's it from?
going deep. Mike Howard, just Mike Howard. That's where I know it from.
That's just he. It's a thing he says.
Yeah, it's a thing. It's a thing Snowbike Mike says that I've picked up. It's part of my vocabulary now.
All right.
The man is making his waves on the zeitgeist.
My concern is it seems like one of those things that is like an appropriation kind of thing.
Oh shoot! Really?
Like that's what it sounds like to me. I don't. It's obviously like I've heard it from Mike as well, and I know Mike wouldn't do anything like that, you know, in a malicious kind of sense. But it definitely doesn't sound like a normal. Like where so that's what I'm asking is like, what is the origin of in the Duffy?
I don't know. I just know it's from Snowbike Mike.
Okay.
So if anybody has a problem, contact Snowbike Mike about it. He's the one that started it.
I mean, that won't get you off the hook
nope.
if somebody has a problem with you saying it, but sure, go with it.
Yeah, for sure. No, like we got really deep in the weeds, deep in the details about a lot of stuff.
Fine, perfectly fine.
Yeah, totally fine. About like a lot of like the like where it takes place in the Warhammer timeline. I'm really excited to get this interview posted up, mainly because like 40k content usually does very well everywhere. Okay. So it's really cool. Also getting our interview has him playing the game, and there's some gameplay elements being shown there. A lot of really cool stuff based around kind of like action points that you see from the Warhammer 40k kind of system, like the tabletop system from the Rogue Trader game. They've done a really great job, I think, of like translating it. Time will tell for like the full game, but it has like there's some interesting dynamics going on. They announced like he told me, he's like, yeah, we just announced like this new character from this race, and I'm like, hold up, how does that interact with the character that you've already announced that was from another race, and they're like no good together? And he goes, oh, that's where a lot of the party management stuff comes into effect, and like the actual like role play stuff comes into effect. So it gets deeper into that. And he goes, yeah, and here we go. We're gonna fight some Necrons. I was like, hold up, is this a Necron? Like we got really deep into the like how this relates to like lore and stuff.
Yeah,
too.
I was gonna say this person, like when you bust out your insane stupid lore knowledge, he probably was like, oh, I can talk to this person about stuff.
Yeah, kind of.
This is going to not just be a surface level interview. All right.
Yeah, it was very much that. Start off like, so this is the game. I was like, well, before we start the game, can I ask a few questions about any? And like, we just went in. Like, it was awesome. Great interview, great time. Really shaping up to be a great game. I have a lot of faith in that they will deliver on it because they did such a great job with both Kingmaker and Wrath of the Righteous and the Pathfinder franchise. So like, they were great. Yeah, also, and yeah, they have yet to, sometime next year is what they were saying. But that they've really yet to determine a date.
Okay. Up next we have Demonschool, which, this was one you mentioned, like when you got in the car, when I picked you up from the airport, and you were like, oh yeah, I played this one. And like, you're talking to me as if I had ever played it.
Yeah, for some reason I thought you did. But that was also,
I know nothing about this game. So tell me about Demonschool.
Yeah, that was also when I was like probably at my worst as far as like my post PAX haze of like mental fog, was definitely when you picked me up from the airport.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Demonschool is from Necrosoft. They announced it earlier this year.
They announced it earlier this year. How would I have played it at PAX East?
I don't know, Trevor.
Then?
I don't know. This was not. The mental fog was there, man. I came home, I showered, and I literally soaked my feet and took a bath. I defogged, and then I slept for several hours today. So, like, now I know for sure. Like, there's no way you would have played this game.
No. I mean, that's yeah.
I'm pretty sure I talked to either Finn or it was actually probably Cam Hawkins who played at like GDC or something. So yeah, there's no way you would have known.
Nope. So Demonschool. What kind of game is Demonschool?
Demonschool is like a really cool love letter. It's from Next Games, being published by Eastbird Games. Eastbird Games was like kind of to like have this entire setup. It was actually a really cool booth because they had like school desks with like laptops on that you could play the game on, that you were playing the game on. And so it was like setting up like a school, and they also rolled out a CRT TV on a cart to be kind of like their trailers for the people walking by. Yeah, that they're like that, and so totally unique. Loved the heck out of it. It was awesome. The game is I feel like it's a love letter to old Shin Megami Tensei games, like the games that came out pre-Persona. Mm-hmm. It takes place on an island. You play Faye, who is the last in a long line of demon slayers and demon hunters, except there hasn't been a demon sighted in like 300 years. And all of a sudden demons are popping up here, and you and your friends that you gain through circumstance are the only people who can somehow remember. It seems like nobody can remember the demon activity that's been going on. Like, they just don't recall that it's even happening the next day. And so it's a little bit of like, not Groundhog's Day kind of amnesia, but some amnesia going on, and just an overall kind of like really cool high schoolers against like the forces of evil type stuff going on, a la Buffy or a la, other stuff. Faye is an awesome main character. Love her, like fell in love with her really quickly. She's a badass, and they are just, all the other characters are really, really cool. There's Newt, who is kind of like he's a full on like the black nerd, black otaku little stereotype. But chill and cool. Like, he has like a very cool, neat, pristine kind of like attitude and like style that he has. There's Destin, who's like a total himbo in gym shorts, and like I love these characters so much I would die for them. And I only spent like 30 to 45 minutes with them. They were awesome. It was an incredible demo. There was also a boss demo where like apparently by day 3, every day, these two same people came by to try to speedrun the boss to see how fast they could get it done. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of the intricacies of the grid system combat are really, really cool. And the way that different characters move around and what they do when they fight an enemy are very different as well. Even if you're at max health, if you heal yourself with Newt's abilities, Newt is able to like actually give you like a strength boost. And so even though you had full health, it doesn't matter. You want to give that bonus to your strength. There's also like hyper modes that you activate to activate special abilities when you attack, that each of them are different. And overall, it's just really, really cool. You also grow to know these people a bit more personally, and like, depending on who you ask for advice, a la Persona, you increase your friendship with them on that level. It's really very cool. I'm really looking forward to this game. It might be my game of the show. It's really up there.
Okay, cool. Moving on. Oh, do we have any kind of sense of? Obviously, it was, you said, only announced earlier this year. Is it like 2024?
It's TBD right now, but they say they're looking at 2023, but they're not firm on a date because they don't want, like, it could push to 2024. Mm-hmm. Got to talk to the president of Necrosoft Games while I was playing it, and was just super fun. He was giving me like tips and stuff about like how to approach certain things. And like, hey, you might want to try doing this and check this out. And like, oh, you might want to talk to this person. I like, at one point I stopped at a dialogue choice, and I looked at him and I was like, listen, I know I should be asking this person because she probably has the right answer. But Destin is offering an answer, and I know it's going to be wrong, but I also know it's going to be really funny. And he just nodded at me. And I said, okay. And I chose Destin, and it was hilarious. So good.
Okay.
So good.
There you go. Cool. World of Horror. What is this one about?
Yeah, so this is from Panstats.
Definitely sounds like one of those I will never touch.
Probably not, no. Which is a shame because it's a really cool RPG. There's really cool RPG and investigation elements, but it's also like it's inspired by the works of Junji Ito, who is like the world famous horror manga artist. So yeah, doubt it. It's like Junji Ito and Lovecraftian horror put into a game, and it's really really cool. But like it's not like there's not like a lot of like jump scare elements to it, so maybe you might be interested in playing it, but it's definitely horror focused. It's really really cool. Really really cool. It's already out in early access. It comes out of early access on Halloween. And it it has a lot of inspiration from like Lovecraftian fiction with the way that it's about older gods or elder gods kind of like infecting this small town. It's all very, very cool. The RPG and investigation elements are a lot of fun.
So, what kind of RPG are we talking? Like turn-based?
Think like old school like Dragon Warrior.
Okay.
You see the image of the enemy and then you pick options to like defeat them. So classic kind of turn-based stuff. Like very classic turn-based.
Okay. Is that like the art style is also like throwback stuff?
Yeah, it's like 8 to 16-bit style.
Okay.
Very, very cool.
I mean, if it's something like that, I'd probably be fine with it then.
Oh yeah, no, I think you'd be fine with it.
It's more like, is this like, modern day, very high end graphics that are going to be gross and grotesque and stuff like that?
No. Right. That's why I think you'd actually be interested in it as far as like a horror game goes. And it's more about like the mystery aspect of it and like kind of like the surreal, suburban, what's the term used? Like legend, like urban legend type stuff. More focus on that. Junji Ito is really great about like grasping on those with his individual works, and so a lot of that is derived from it into this game, and it's very very cool.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Oh yeah, this looks very like early PC kinds of stuff. I mean, also I guess looking like the graphics are not 8-bit graphics; they are very detailed drawings and whatnot.
I guess I don't know
looking at some of the horror and stuff.
I was trying to figure out like what kind of like graphics you would describe that as, and the best I could think of is like bit.
I mean, it looks like adventure game like graphics, like a very high end, Curse of Monkey Island kind of thing, but also very detailed and very like it's not leaving a lot to the imagination in terms of the eldritch horror people with just like no face and just teeth vibes that I'm seeing here. So. Gross. All right. Then let's.
Sorry, I added a game to the list.
Huh?
I added a game to the list. I forgot about one.
You added a game to the list? Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's fine. We're good.
I don't have it here. Okay. Is that where you want it to go, or do you want to talk?
Yeah, no, it's the very last one that I played.
Okay. Then moving on to the next one, Lost Eidolons: Veil of the Witch.
So this one was not a scheduled appointment, so I don't have any. Oh, by the way, both of those previous games I have gameplay recorded, like 30 minutes each. So I look forward to like kind of like piecing that together and like finding a cool way to show those off. Next up is Lost Eidolons: Veil of the Witch. It's a tactical RPG, class based. I ran the game. I sped ran it to a game over just to kind of like see what the game was about. The artwork and class design I think is actually pretty interesting. And the story, I didn't get much of the story element in what I played, but it looks like individual character relationships seem very important.
Bless you.
Sorry, somebody was talking bad about me. I'm joking. No, so there's no interview or no gameplay of it, and I really spent a short amount of time with it. I kind of stood in line for it because the line was short, and I wanted to check out this game real quick. It looks great. Plays pretty well, has a pretty solid RPG system. I just didn't get enough of a feel of the story from it because it was much more of a gameplay focused demo. And I'm sure I could have gotten more information, but I like I said, I kind of hid that I was media when I went in for the gameplay to play the game. And it wasn't until afterwards when I was like leaving, they're like, "Wait, you were media? Hold on a second. Like, did you want to like sit down in our like media area?" He's like, "Oh no, I just I have an appointment to get to. I just needed kind of like the quick treatment, You did get a tote bag from him, which was very, very kind of them.
All right. Enotria, the last song.
So this was an appointment game that I have. I don't have any any footage or any interview for it. It was just really my impressions from it. This game is to be determined 2024 sometime. It is a Soulsborne like action RPG based on Milan, Italy folklore. And very focused on it being like a very bright and vibrant rather than dark, dingy, and gritty.
Mm-hmm.
It also, instead of focusing on a traditional stats-based thing that you get from a Soulsborne game, their upgrade system seems to be very much more focused on what is the crux of their game, which is kind of the mask system. Anybody familiar with like the Festival of Masks and stuff in Italy would be familiar with like this happening in Milan, and it being part of like I don't want to say Milanese, but Milan-based kind of culture. It is a very cool sort of ability focused around masks and the kind of masks you wear, and the kind of masks have different affinities with like different weapons and abilities, and kind of like more passive focus of abilities and functions. I think there is a deeper upgrade system, but it wasn't something I was able to access during the demo. But what I loved about it was the way that you can actually build your loadouts and then change them on the fly. So instead of being locked into a specific playstyle because you built your stats a certain way and you have a certain specific type of weapon that you've been trying to use, I was fighting where I had kind of swapped over to like some light fighting stuff because I was fighting a group of guys, and I swapped over to a kind of like light saber focused for like groups, and I cleared out those groups, and then I kept fighting with the saber and the longsword option for that mask loadout. And it was going great. And then I fought what I found out later was a mini boss, and I was just getting whooped hard by him because I really couldn't. He was wielding a halberd, and I couldn't really get closer range into him on that. And so I switched to heavy weapons, to a heavy weapon mask loadout, and just absolutely took him to town, took him to task, and had a great time with it. And then swapped back and forth as I needed to, as I faced off against different enemies. It felt somewhat unpolished. Like, this game is certainly not close to being done. But it felt like it was in a very good place for where it was at. Like, the bones and structure of this game are very good. And the kind of the puzzle elements of exploration with the different abilities that you have are also very, very good. I look forward to really seeing what this game looks like when it's more further fleshed out.
Is this one you were telling me about on the way to there that you were excited to check out, I think?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it was. And it was one that I found, like, people who played it, we all talked about it, like, very excitedly.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely one of those games that, like, people who played it really enjoyed it, but people who just, like, saw it, you'd be like, oh, it's an action RPG. Okay. But there is something very special about the way that the intricacies that they're trying to build off of and kind of, like, improve on. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how that works.
All right. Looks like we are taking a sharp detour away from a Soulsborne for our next one. Echoes of Plum Grove.
Yeah, I played this at the Mix, which is a very cool like mixer where you get to check out some indie games that are kind of harder to find on the show floor. Shout out to I think it was Stride PR who put it on, but it was just an awesome event. Had a really good time with it and checked out a lot of like really fun, cool games. I didn't play any of them hands-on with them, except for Echoes of Plum Grove, which is why it's on my list. It's interesting. The graphics and the characters are like Fisher-Price Play School people. If you remember those at all from like your childhood, they look very similar. And it's very, like, it's fun. I think that was interesting. I was talking to the dev about it.
It looks like Cabbage Patch Dolls to me, kind of.
A little bit, yeah. Definitely has that vibe to it, right? What it operates off of a legacy system where you die in the game every about 2 to 3 years, and so does everyone else. And so it has like a built-in genealogy tree system of people's kids and their grandkids and so forth, and you continue playing by basically playing your progeny as the game goes on.
All right. I mean that is not the element. I mean, it's a farming sim. Yeah. You didn't mention that at all.
Sorry, I forgot to mention it's a farming sim.
Yeah. I'm seeing that because I'm looking at the thing. So yeah, the turn into like you die every couple of years was like that's a very dark what?
Yeah,
kind
that
of
was
vibe.
that was my case as well. Also, architecture and technology are very historically accurate for the time of the 1700s. Like very accurate to the point where they had like an ice house basically for ice blocks. And I was like, oh, that's really crazy. He goes, yeah, we actually went down to Colonial Williamsburg to make sure we got the accuracy right. And I was like, and immediately my thought went like, how accurate? And then I saw that not that accurate because of like people in the game were not all just white. So like the architecture and technology wise, they're sticking it with the historical accuracy. Other cultural elements, not at all.
Slavery and plantation wise, not so much.
Not here at all. We're good on that. we're good on that. Like ran into people like people of color who were just like regular townsfolk and like no slavery being mentioned. So like we're good. I hope there was no slavery in the demo.
It does seem like that would go at odds with like the very cutesy style of the thing. All right. I mean, in terms of like farm sim stuff, all your standards, your basics, everything you would expect from that?
Everything you would expect, yeah. It's including a chest that holds all your tools. And yes, I added another game. Sorry, I remembered one.
Jesus Christ, Cam. You're bad at this. You are always bad. Oh, yeah. So where's that one go in this list?
We can just put it after. It was done the same day. Like, this was not one I had an appointment for, so we're good.
Okay. Well, up next we have, is this a game or is this like a set?
This is a set of games. I'm going to go through these pretty quickly. I have literally so much capture footage of these games. So
okay, Playism Games.
Yeah,
tell me about what this is about.
All right, first off, Phantom Rose 2 Sapphire. It's a deck building Hades-esque dungeon crawling turn-based RPG game. You play a girl who is woken up by a cat, and you have to deck build your way as you try to escape a school filled with like weird creatures that are trying to murder you. Pretty cool, actually. Like really a lot of fun. Timing wise, with like how your different cards go out. Magic is purely support. So support abilities, whether it's like your shield or your health recovery, those are just for that. That's that category. And then your attacks are like your different like physical or like different physical attacks that you have with like different weapons and stuff that you pick up. All card based, all very cool. You can only carry so many cards, so when you get to a rest area, you have to like drop whatever cards you have on you that are in excess, and it's all very, very cool.
Okay.
Next up is Eden.schematica. This one is a point-and-click adventure or detective game with a cyber Frankenstein vibe. Keyword-based solution, so when you're looking around, you pick up keywords from things that you find and say, and then you use that to solve puzzles and whatnot.
Okay.
Next up is a star named Eos. This one is a point-and-click puzzle game revolving around maternal themes and photography. Seems very chill vibes as far as that, but it has a lot of like, there's a depthness to this game, like a depth to it that I think is actually very interesting, and I think like I would like to enjoy more going forward. Also, the puzzles are very open-ended, not complicated, but very open-ended. And so as you find more and more pieces to solve those puzzles, things just start clicking automatically as you've been exploring and trying to figure them out anyway.
Okay.
Metalbringer, which is a voxel art roguelike action focused on level exploration and horde mechanics. It is very, very good. Also, they have an Easter egg in there for the original Mobile Suit Gundam, where you get to have the original Char Anzabal's helmet as a choice for your like character that gets created in the game to kind of act as an avatar for the main character, because they can't leave like where they're at, so you have to go out. So you create this to kind of like go out and explore for you. And I completely like formatted everything outfit wise and giant robot wise, because you can hop in giant robots to move around faster and do like take on more hordes of enemies. Red Comet wise, like people who know, if you know, you know, Char Anzabal Red Comet themed everything, and I had a blast playing it. It was really, really good.
Okay. All that just over my head.
All good. Next up was Break Arts 3. This was actually the game that got me interested in checking them out. It is a third-person racing and combat mech game that has a real depth of customization from what they teased, although they only let you choose one of 2 units. But from what you could tell from it, it's highly customizable. And it works off of a points-based system where it's not just whether you're racing or doing combat, whichever mode you're choosing to do, everything revolves around points. The racing is intricate because getting first place means your team gets like a number of points. But depending on how many mechs were destroyed by your team, that gives you additional points and takes points away from the other team. So coming in first and like going just fast all the time isn't always the solution, because you can still, even if you come in first, your team can come in last.
Okay.
And then the next game that I played from them, which is the last game I'll talk about from them, is Fight Crab 2. I was not expecting this game to be an absolute banger. It absolutely is. It has an incredibly deep pet raising fighting. It's a pet raising system with fighting game mechanics in it. You literally dress up as a person in like full suit of armor, and like your weapon that you have strapped to your back is one of those crab like scooping things that you have from restaurants. And you basically like help your crab. You ride a crab and you try to tip the other crabs over on their backs for a 3 count. So it also has like some wrestling elements in there. What's crazy is how photorealistic all the crustaceans are. It's wild and it's cool and it's fun, and it's just a rampaging good time. I can't recommend it highly enough.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is a weird. It's in the vein of Goat Simulator, kind of like non sequitur, nonsensicalness, but also just a fighting game.
A fighting game that is like has a deep like stat pet raising system in it. I cannot recommend this game enough. It's kind of wild how good this game is. Also, when you start playing, an anime girl randomly pops up, and that's the only place she's ever in, is like to help you in the main like tutorial menus. And like help you manage your crab system. It's weird. It's super weird, super Japanese, super weird, and I freaking loved it. It was awesome.
All right. Did you play the first Fight Crab?
No, I have no idea what the first Fight Crab's about.
Okay.
And shout out to Playism. They were super accommodating to help me with the capture stuff. We're like whatever I needed to do to get capture going for it, they were totally on board with and helped me out a ton. So
cool. All right. So then stepping away from Playism games and that little flurry of stuff, which now brings you well over 20 games, since you had disguised that all as one thing on the list. And basically I don't think I'm ever going to I'm just not going to let you go to PAXs anymore on our thing, because you fail to understand here's the issue with it, Cam, is like you're saying a whole bunch of stuff, but like nothing's really like sticking or standing out. A lot of it is just like, okay, here's the 2 minutes that like the click of the game kind of thing. And maybe this will switch when you are sitting down and doing like all of the edits and the gameplay and showing all that stuff. But like right now I'm just like being bombarded by way too many things, and I guess like from what you've told me, I would say like Demonschool and Fight Crab 2 seem to be like the real standouts for you.
Yes, absolutely.
Is that accurate?
That's pretty accurate.
And but then everything else just kind of feels like you played it, and if you never play it again, you'll be fine.
I apologize if that's what it feels like. That's certainly not my intention.
No, I mean, but that's the and I don't think that's your intention at all. But it's just when you have 20 games that we're going to talk about over the course of an hour and change, it's like none of them get like a ton of time to really cover. And since I know nothing about any of these games coming into it, it's also just like I don't have the best grasp of what
That's
happens
fair.
in these games. So that's just kind of that is why I very much was like, hey, don't feel like you need to play a billion things, Cam, because like I don't know how much it's going to come across, or how well it's going to come across in like the coverage, so to speak. So
I hear you on that, and I think that like I wasn't intending to have this happen. It just kind of did.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I really had a great time playing. I'm like, there are some of these games that I'll be honest, like I could go without ever playing again, but I think it's weird. I had such a great time playing them. I don't think that there's any game that I played that wasn't like was really good.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that there are certain circumstances or instances where some of these games might not be as interesting to other people.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, very much. It's I think I mean, yeah, I never want to crap on like the devs that are out there
Absolutely
showing
not.
their
No,
stuff.
no,
Like
no, no.
they're all doing amazing stuff, and shout out to them all showing their stuff. But it's very much like a lot of those games aren't going to be for everybody, and so it is trying to find the ones that really pop, so that you can kind of be a champion for those games, maybe more
Yeah.
so than like, oh, okay, yep, this got buried and I saw it among a dozen other things and forgot about it. You know, as the case, like as you're going, you've remembered two games that you did
Well,
not think about as you were compiling this list initially.
when I was compiling this list initially, it was also like I spent some time like going through everything that I actually touched on and played.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because I have like really great visceral memories of playing all of these games. But the problem was is that I didn't have a like when I was sourcing stuff. There's one of these games that I added that I didn't have like a business card or anything from. I just randomly like saw it and was like, oh, I did want to check that out and play it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one was one that I just like as I was wrapping up. It's like both of those games are two games that I played like the day like last day, and it's literally like if you actually swap the order that I listed them as,
Mm-hmm.
that's the order of like the last two games that I played.
Yeah, I think it's also, and I'm also coming at this from. We talked about this a little bit off mic, but like you mentioned at the top of the show, like you were very anxious because this is the first time you've ever done like a solo show.
Yeah.
Whereas I was very much the opposite, and I during all my Trevor Trove days was doing them as a solo show, and I think the most I ever touched at one PAX doing Trevor Trove was like 17 games or something like that, and I was doing write-ups on each of them. If not like a full write-up per game, I was still doing like, here's my daily like breakdown of everything I did.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So,
and I think, and I'll be honest, if I was doing a full write-ups for all of these games,
Mhm.
I would not have played as many games.
Mm-hmm.
With that in that in mind. But I knew that I wasn't going to be doing a full write-up. I was really going to be doing like what I have as far as like my notes. One of the reasons I want to do like these notes is because I will be doing kind of like a wrap of everything I played at PAX, but we are going to get blurbs for most of these. And I think that this is just a fun way for me to just tell you about the games that I saw and I played.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if there was any of these games that I think were in like I could quantify as being bad, I would not be bringing them up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's just like there's a quality of video games right now, and I don't know what it is, but there's a quality of video games going on right now that I think are really, really good. And all of those games that I played at Playism, the one that I was probably least interested in afterwards is Break Arts 3. The other ones I had a really awesome time with, and I definitely want to go back and play. Break Arts 3 is just not my cup of tea, but I did think it was interesting enough that I think other people would be interested in picking it up, especially after the kind of success that Armored Core 6 has had since its launch.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would definitely fall into, like, if you were a big fan of Armored Core 6's kind of like high, fast gameplay, this might kind of fall into that same line with you, although it's not a one-to-one comparison. So I understand, like, hey, I listed 20 games here technically, but
I've not actually counted. I'm just kind of ballparking it based.
I mean,
on
I don't think you're wrong. I don't think you're wrong. That's the thing.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's dive into. I'll go ahead and count while you tell me about the next one on your list. PixelJunk Scrappers Deluxe.
Yes,
I'm assuming there's a PixelJunk Scrappers out there, and this is like the P5 Royale version of it, kind of thing.
Kind of, yeah. This is actually because it was originally just came out on. It had originally come out, but this is them pushing it for all platforms, including and having crossplay. And it's out now. Like the game came out now. So you can play it right now if you'd like. It is pretty fun. I will say this is one game that I did not like solo. I don't think there's a lot there solo. However, I think like the same way I think like playing the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles like newest game, it solo is like it's fine. I think this is even like on a lower end than that. But I will say that this game has a lot of fun couch co-op type potential. And with cross-play across all systems, I think that it has a real like opportunity to kind of shine in that aspect of it. Especially when it comes to the fact that you're running around, you're basically a robot trash person, and you're picking up trash that's like in these alleys that you're going through. The level that we played was like an alley, and you're going through it, and you're picking up trash and throwing it in the back of trash and earning money. And over time, you are attacked by other by basically trash hoarders who are coming to like take back their trash from you. and you are fighting them off, and then you pick up their dead bodies and you also throw it in your trash can, in your trash truck. And it's a lot of fun of like how much it has that kind of Death Stranding approach of like how much trash can I stack on top of each other, and you move slower and it kind of like sways. But if you hold down A and you throw it correctly with the your left stick, it will land in it and like count it towards your total. And it's a lot of fun to see how much you can stack on top. And it's also a lot of fun because if you die, your teammate can pick up your head, throw you in the trash, like trash compactor, and then it's a free revive. Otherwise, it's like you lose $100 from your total at the end. I played it multiplayer with Janet Garcia and Cam Hawkins, and we had a blast playing it. And like, I think that was like the atmosphere. Like, it's really fun with a group of people, especially if you can coordinate a little bit. But overall, it is like, I just do not think it's a stellar single player experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it definitely looks like one of those more party game kind of things.
Yep.
Cool. 23 games is what we're looking at right now, unless you throw more on here.
No, that's it. I've literally tapped myself out. Those two were like ones that I actually had to like double check my camera roll to make sure I was naming them correctly.
Gotcha.
Because I only took photos of them.
Eden 2.0. What's this one about?
This one is a sequel to the original Eden game. It is coming out to 4K.
Then it's at least aptly named.
Yeah. It's coming out to 4K systems. It's already out on Nintendo Switch. It's a low chill vibe, kind of, lo-fi soundtrack style game where you're trying to pollinate the Garden of Eden, basically, or something to that effect. I'm not gonna lie, very much not interested in this game, but it was one that I did find was like, I think this would definitely vibe with people who just want like a chill, cool platforming experience because it is a platformer.
All right. So here's the issue. Like, I know nothing about the original Eden game, and if I just type in Eden game, I get at least 3 different looking games.
Cool.
And then Eden 2.0 just isn't really giving me anything. It looks
all right. Cool. Let me go into
I guess this one.
Is it a little might people?
PixelJunk Eden 2?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, like, this one, the one I'm looking at just has like a bunch of like pink blobs. And so I'm like, that looks like the vibe you're talking about.
Yeah, it's very much that. You play a little mite person who's trying to like spread pollen around and gather it up. And like there is some fun like bungee mechanics with like your jumping and platforming. But as somebody who's not big into platformers, it just doesn't really appeal to me. I think if you are really into platformers and you want a low chill vibes game,
okay,
this is a good game for you.
This looks like, I don't know if you ever played it back in the PS3. I remember it being like one of those first like PS Plus games I remember really picking up. Or maybe it was even like just an indie game discount kind of thing, but Hohokam.
I never played it, so that
yeah. It looks like that kind of vibes of like a top down, Hohokam was like you were going around and I don't even want to remember that, but like it, like I feel like you were like bursting flowers and kind of thing. It was like in the vein of like a flow as well, pre-flower, pre-journey kind of thing.
Very much that sort of vibe to it. I will say that the different mites that you can choose from do have different abilities, but I was locked in only playing one of them, so I can't really tell you much about it. Okay. It just really was not like my cup of tea, but I definitely see this being like for those of you out there who partake of the Sticky Icky, the Mary Jane, this might be like right up your vibe if you're also into platformers. So
sure. Mirthwood.
Mirthwood is a game. So this is Mike Towndrow, buddy of ours, who works for, I think it's Vicarious, right?
I don't know off the top of my head.
Yeah, Mirthwood is, they would describe it to me as
Vicarious PR.
Yeah, Vicarious PR. Vicarious PR described it to me as the bastard offspring of Fable, The Sims, and Wildermyth. It's an RPG life sim that combines social, class, backgrounds, and professions to kind of create unique characters that can interact with a pretty like interesting world. That's just like a pretty general fantasy world. Basically, you're going around and you are doing an adventure. You pick where you come from. Your background is like where you're from, one of the countries that you're from, and that kind of creates a sort of personality type from you. If you're from like this capital place, you're more assertive. If you're from a more rural place, you're more you're more not complacent, but you're more agreeable is the term they use. And if you're from like this other place that has like elves and stuff, you're more conscientious, and that kind of creates kind of like a baseline kind of like attitude that people kind of view you with. And then from there you pick your class, and your class isn't like warrior or fighter or anything like that. It's royal, noble, peasant. And royal and noble, you have a lot of like social benefits, but there's massive detractions as far as like your physical abilities. And peasant, you have like some very negative like aspects to your social status, but you are like way more focused on like physical stuff and doing that. From there, you then pick like
You can make the decision to go punch a noble and they'll fall flat. Probably not.
I don't know. I didn't get to that point. It was a pretty short demo, only about like 15 minutes total. It was one that I didn't have an appointment for either, so I don't have like any real coverage for it, or like PR stuff for it. But it was pretty cool. I will say that it was interesting because at first I was like going through it. I was like, yeah, I want to come from the elf place. So I want to be conscientious. I want to be a peasant. Okay, cool. And then it's like, what kind of like profession do you want? And I looked through them. I was like, I want to be a criminal. And it's like, you want to be a conscientious criminal. So I backed it up a bit and then chose actor instead, which is kind of like your bard. And so I was like, that could help me like pick up my my social stats a bit.
Conscientious criminal is just Robin Hood.
Pretty much, yeah. I guess. I just thought it was really cool. Like it did that kind of like set up kind of like what your baseline stats would be while you're doing stuff. And then I had a really good time just like meeting people. There's like a greet button and then a talk to people button. So you can just like greet them and like just be like, hey, and then you like move on. And it was like a positive interaction. So you're improved, but you can also jeer at them and be like, F you, and then like run away.
So yeah, like what is the gameplay? You're just kind of like chatting with people. You're roaming
around an open world that has a village in it, like villages in it and whatnot. I only saw a very small glimpse of the game, but I was supposed to get to an inn, and then once I got to that inn, they're like, hey, you got here, but you should know that there's these ruins. And I was on my way to go check out these ruins when I was fighting some bandits, and that's when my demo ended. But from what I could see, when you interact with people, you can like charm them and do different sort of like ask them different sorts of questions to kind of like get to know them better or get to know like the area better. And then there's also like, personal interaction stuff like, that I assume as you level up your relationship with the person, you get more and more of those options, like, hugging, kissing, etc.
All right. Cool. Sky the Scrapper.
Scraper.
Scraper?
Yep.
All right.
Did I put two P's on there?
You wrote Scrapper.
Sorry, Sky the Scraper.
Okay.
This is from Phoenix Inc. So both these games I'm going to be talking about are like very much Japanese imported games. And there's an interesting thing I spoke to.
This game and the next game, not Mirthwood, right?
Not Mirthwood, no.
Okay.
I spoke to the person who was there from Phoenix Inc. Phoenix with two X's at the end. And the game itself is an action sim where you play Sky, a recently independent building scraper who cleans the side of buildings using a running pulley system. Kind of like a little bit of a bungee system to it, but also a little bit of like a running across kind of like running while running around a building. Mm-hmm. There's the danger of like falling off. So you have to like kind of manage yourself so you don't like go too far off the sides of it. But also you have like an energy meter that kind of tells you like how much you can do without risking falling, basically. You also have like a wiper level that tells you like how dirty your wiper is, and there's like a cleaning mechanism to it. It's timed, and so you go to like different buildings depending on like what your building you're cleaning that day is, and some have like vents on the side, so you have to kind of like maneuver around them as you're kind of swinging around. One of them you do some of them you do at night, so you have like a small like spotlight, and your energy meter is a lot smaller, so you have to be much more careful. And then on top of that is after you work, you have like life elements to it, so you have like days off, and during those days off, you kind of have to fill them with activities or ways to improve yourself. And there's an overarching story about Sky themselves. So Sky is recently independent from what looks to be from the messages and text messages you get from like a very overbearing, like very like nasty dad and a like very much enabling mother. And so they're trying to be independent and pursuing their dreams, and whether that's scraping buildings or whatnot, living independently seems to be their dream. And so the first thing you have to do is within the first 7 days is get enough money to pay your deposit for your apartment. And then after that, you have to basically build up enough willpower stat from like being successful to have a confrontation with your mother where you tell her, I'm going to be on my own. And that's kind of like where the demo ends. And it is really, really good. There's something compelling about it. And as I was playing through it, I felt like reminiscent of like what it was like when I was living on my own for the first time. You know, I wasn't like, especially after I dropped out of community college, like there was a lot of concern from my parents about like, hey, maybe you should just move to live with us here in California. Like you could get a job here, etc. But there was this level of independence that I had achieved that I wanted to maintain and live through. And when I was talking with the PR person from Phoenix Inc., she told me that she was afraid that the game designer, the game creator, was afraid that that wasn't something that was like a cultural thing. That was a cultural thing in Japan, but maybe not in the United States. And I actually was like quite the opposite. I have a very different, and I know that there's a lot of people out there who, especially when you're not on quote unquote on track for a traditional post high school lifestyle, there's a lot of stigma you have to deal with, and a lot of like overbearingness from some people have overbearing parents who like want you to be like, they want to, like for my parents, they just wanted me to be secure. They didn't want me to be homeless. They didn't want me to be like broke all the time. But that was just part of my growing experience. And playing through this game, I was really reminded of that a lot. And hearing them say that, and I said, I really think that that creators should understand that there's a lot more of a cross-cultural reference to that sort of feeling of independence that you're seeking. So that was a really fun experience. And then I played the next game that I played was...
Sorry, real quick. I pulled up Steam and I'm watching some of the trailers and stuff. And as you were talking about that one, at one point in the trailer, Sky is cleaning on a very high wind skyscraper kind of thing. And the wind just blew him off and went flying. And I was like, oh, well, Sky's dead now.
Yep. It's you get injured. I got a bad ending where I got injured too many times, and so I got a game over because I was in the hospital too much.
Yeah. Welcome to the American healthcare system.
Oh, that wasn't American. That was in Japanese. Japanese healthcare system is not much better from what I've been told by people. I might be wrong. I could be incorrect on that, but very much but also it was more of like I'm giving up on my dreams because I've broken too many bones. Yeah.
Then moving on to Parry Nightmare.
Parry Nightmare. This is a timing focused game where you essentially
it's the parry mechanic.
It's the parry mechanic, but you are like a little orb that you bounce and cause a parry to other orbs, and like it's a weird game to try to explain because it's very, very much like a visual experience. It has something to do with mental health. I don't know the story behind this game. All I know is that it was extremely addicting. I was super addicted to it. I wanted to keep playing it. You basically parry enough to throw off creatures until you build an overall, like you charge up a super move that clears the screen. And as you do that, you collect a resource that then builds up to what's called a yellow soul.
I mean, it definitely looks like a Vampire Survivor-like.
Yeah. If a parry mechanic-based Vampire Survivor-like game, absolutely. Very addictive. Very, very addictive. Very, very fun, too. I had a blast playing it. It was really, really cool. If you miss and you don't have anybody in your parry circle when you drop your parry, when you conduct your parry, you get like a fatigue where you have like a recovery period that you have to get back to. And so being swarmed by enemies and mistiming it can be really dangerous. And it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. All right. Now we finally get the story of the hat. Sail forth.
So the story of the hat is, as I was going up to check out Sail Forth from Quantum APG, one of the PR people walked up and he was holding the hat, and I kind of made and he also was carrying like my press kit, and the thumb drive, and I made a joke. I was like, "Oh, is that hat for me?" And they kind of like looked at each other. The developer and the PR guy looked at each other, and they're like, "Yeah, sure, here you go." And I was like, "Oh, I was joking." They're like, "No, you can have it." And I was like, okay. And I put it on, and then I turned back around, and the guy who had it, who was going to be putting it on, now had like a pirate's hat on. And I made a joke. I was like, oh my gosh, is this like a pyramid scheme where like now I've been brought in and I have to bring someone else in so that I can give them this hat and then I get that hat? And we all just had a good laugh and chuckle, and then they just told me to keep the hat afterwards. Also had a fun photo op, that like impromptu photo op of me at this. They had at their booth, they had a like steering wheel from a ship, and they have like Joy-Con controllers on it because it's coming out on Switch now. And they have Joy-Cons on the side, and so I have like a fun photo op of me with the sailor's cap doing that. So, I will say this is a sailing game with a lot of. It's already out right now, so if you want to check it out, go check it out. They got chosen for PAX Rising, so that's why they were back. Otherwise, they said we probably would have skipped it. I will say that it's a very fun sailing game with a lot of humor and heart to it. There are these NPCs called the Croak Commandos, who are French submarine frogs who give you missions to go like help out the other people. When I met the first Croak Commando, he asked me like the code phrase, and it was very, very funny. It's very, very funny. A lot of good humor. But probably the thing that's crazy about this is how good the boat mechanic is. The boat mechanic is incredible. Like, the sailing mechanic is awesome. You basically build out a fleet as you're building up more, like, a larger and larger groups of ships. You fit them all out with, like, cannons and different, like, weapons and stuff. And it's so much fun. But what was also really incredible was the ocean mechanic itself. Like, the way waves work. It was unlike any other kind of sailing game that I've ever played. And there was a point where I was attacking a bandit it's called the Skull Clan. But it's obviously pirates. And as I was fighting them, I was at one point definitely going to get hit, and I was going to like lose a crewmate for my ship after taking that much damage. And as I was like trying to swerve away, and I'm like, I know I'm going to get hit by it. It's on its way. I can feel it coming. A wave kind of hit me underneath, and I kind of surfed along it, and it sped me along, and the cannonball missed me. And it was just so cool to see that level of depth of like ocean mechanic to it that made it a lot of fun. I really think this and apparently it's already done pretty well. So congrats out to them, but I had a really great time with it today. Oh, sorry, yesterday.
Nice. Yeah, it looks very like cartoony animation style and stuff like that, but It looks like the ship stuff from Assassin's Creed Black Flag, but with, it sounds like, better sea mechanics and stuff like that.
Yep. Also, if anybody out there is familiar with the Aquanauts, it's a very Aquanauts like style of like animals and vibe to it. Means nothing to you, Trevor, but to people out there who have watched children's television, you definitely get it.
Sure. All right. KingsIsle's Wizards 101 Pirates 101 anniversary. So I didn't play a game for this. I just want to say I did an interview with two of the leads over there. It's like a 40+ minute interview. It is wild. It is a crazy good time. If you are interested at all in Wizards 101 and kind of like the history of it and anything like that, it's a great interview. Otherwise, like not much else to talk about it. It's all right.
Yep.
Sucker to Love, Date to Die For.
This
is that the right name? Sucker to Love, Date to Die For?
Yep. This is a fun game. Do you remember the show Totally Spies?
I don't think I do. So it's the style of the game is very much that style of Western approach to anime. Anime as an art form in the late 90s, early 2000s. It has references to Sacramento instead of Sacramento. It's very, very funny in the way that it kind of approaches kind of their humor, but what is fun appears to be a big old series.
It is a series. I didn't know that when I started playing it.
The latest in a series of Sucker for Love games.
Yeah, I think it's the second one. The other three happened, or maybe there's more of them. I'm not sure. All I know is somebody told me I had to go check this out. Eddie from But Why Though? The outlet. He said, you gotta go check it out. It's crazy, good. And he's right. It's a point and click kind of or not point and click. It's a kind of first person investigation game / there's some eldritch stuff going on with it, but it's also really horny. But what's funny about this one compared to the other ones apparently is that the crux of this is the main character is asexual. So you're dealing with a lust cult and the the eldritch being is like the goddess of fertility, and being around her like overwhelms you with like the need for sex. And she goes, your lust should be multiplied by by thousands. And the person goes, oh, well, that explains it. 0 times 1,000 is still 0. And it's like, wait, what? And it's just a fun approach to like this like super sexy game, but the main character was like, oh, well, I think you're really pretty, like you're a really pretty woman, but like, that's it.
All right.
And so you're fighting a cult that's taken over your hometown that you had to like run away from, and now you've been tricked to come back to, and you've allied yourself with this like eldritch deity that's been like taken advantage of by her followers, and you're trying to like basically defeat the cult and like bring back goodness to the city.
So the trailer, right as you were like, yeah, it's been taken over by an eldritch deity, the trailer had like a subtitle basically excited eldritch sounds, which I can't hear, but apparently it was playing excited eldritch sounds, and that's how they captioned it.
Yeah, I had no idea.
It does look like there's a demo on Steam if anybody's interested in this one.
I played the demo. It's super fun. It starts off being like really creepy, and then it goes into like some very fun territory while still being pretty spooky. So a lot of fun, a lot of like tongue-in-cheek stuff going on, and just good overall humor to it. I'm actually interested in maybe checking out the other games, but I was not anticipating just like how they took the punch out of the horniness, I guess, of the game.
Yeah, it looks like there's Sucker for Love Prelude, which is free on Steam, then Sucker for Love First Date, which is $9.99 currently, and yeah, Date to Die For. There's a demo that you can go play now, or there's that one. And then I think we're finally here to your last game, Thaumaturge.
Yes.
What about Thaumaturge, Cam?
So Thaumaturge is a game that takes place in 1905 Poland. It's a Polish studio who's putting this out. It was a game that Finn from SDGC recommended to me. And it is a very cool kind of turn-based RPG game where you are kind of like, and if we're talking with the developer, it sounds like you get involved in bringing about kind of the Polish Revolution that leads to Polish independence around the time of the Great War.
This is the Thaumaturge.
Yeah, the Thaumaturge.
Just to clarify.
Yeah, the Thaumaturge. You play a Thaumaturge who is a kind of a spiritualist who has come back to your hometown after being exiled by your father. After your father's like very tragic death in a very massive building collapse. And you play a Thaumaturge who is able to kind of take control of spirits that are and it's done in a way that's not necessarily like to the benefit of people around you. It's very much a matter of like bringing these spirits and breaking them to your will to control them. And the atmosphere is very like vitriolic. It's very, very combustible. The game starts off with you having been kidnapped by a pseudo childhood friend who turned enemy because of circumstances that led to your exile. And he is a bar owner and a crass individual. And it's basically like, it's very, very gritty, very dark. But the thing about it that's interesting is how well it plays. And I really enjoy the way that their action and combat system works within the turn-based, because not only do you control yourself, you also control the demons that you're controlling. And there's a multitude of demons that you can kind of select from in the fight itself. You can kind of select between them, no problem. And they each have different benefits depending on the kind of enemies you're facing. And there is a connection to also like Rasputin and a few other aspects to it as well that make it that I'm very interested in. There's a period of time in history that I think is very fascinating, and it looks like they're kind of playing into the spiritualism that was very rampant throughout Eastern Europe during the turn of the century in the early 1900s. So I'm very curious to see how this plays out.
All right. All right. So of those 23 games, We already talked about like Demon School and Fight Crab 2 seem to be the standouts. Any of those newer batch kind of join that in your like top tier of these? What are the games that like you're really keeping your eye on out of these? Like top 3 to 5.
Uh, Sucker for Love, Date to Die For is weirdly enough like on my list just because of the kind of nuance about it with like an asexual character taking on a lust cult. So it's very fascinating to me. To top that off, another game that I thought was very like definitely piqued my interest that I saw in the last few days was Sky the Scraper. Sky the Scraper and Parry Nightmare are two games that are definitely on my radar. I found them very fascinating for each individual reason. I definitely want to dig deeper into kind of like its lifetime mechanic of this, like the Sky the Scraper game, and as you kind of like go through, I want to see what other kind of buildings you end up scraping on, the kind of like different super abilities you have for each wiper you have, and kind of like how the upgrade system works because you can buy additional items and stuff. Another thing I wanted to check out, Parry Nightmare. I want to see really what more that's about because it's really a lot of fun to play. I see it being very addictive. And I just kind of want to see, like, I know it has to do with mental illness, but I just kind of like want to see like what's up with that game.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, before we wrap up, PAX, not all about the games. So, what were the panels that you went to? Like,
so I went to the Giant Bomb panel, which was a lot of fun. They did the dump truck. Also, Jan had to shave his head because he didn't finish. I forgot what game it was. He had to finish before PAX. He failed to, so he got his head shaved. Also went to the Kingdom Hearts panel, which was the Kingdom Hearts story is not complicated. You just weren't paying attention, which was an awesome panel put on by 3 people who really know Kingdom Hearts and 1 person who knows nothing about it.
One of those people who knows a lot about it, writing a book on Kingdom Hearts.
Yep, Cam Hawkins. It was a hilarious panel because inevitably they got too into the weeds to properly explain something.
Of course. Yeah, no, absolutely. That's like I saw Cam promoting the panel and of course it's Cam. Cam loves putting he loves that kind of like antagonistic clickbaity thing of like it's not hard. This is easy. Like this is the best thing in the world. I will accept no other suggestions and stuff like that. And it's like it's not that it's not complicated. It's like no, it's absolutely absurd and stupid. Like
well, even
if you're
point.
Paying attention to a lot of stuff, it's still an absurd and stupid story.
Well, that's the entire point. Cam's point was the things that you think don't make sense or things that you think are too complicated aren't too complicated. They're just stupid. They're just really dumb.
Okay.
That was his point. He goes, whenever it got to a point and it was like confusing, he goes, it's not confusing, just it is what it is. It's just stupid. And it's like, cool. At one point though, he was looking for like words to express about like something that happened during the story. And it's like, well, what happened when those two people fought each other? And Cam was like trying to explain it. And I was like, and I just shouted out, he whooped her ass. And he like snapped, pointed at me and said, he whooped her ass. And I'm like, yeah, there we go. Good. Like, and what's crazy is that panel actually had a larger queue audience than the Giant Bomb panel that I went to the next day. So wild, cool, fun.
Were they like in the same room?
Yeah, they were in the same room. They were in the same theater.
In the exact same theater?
Because I was like, man, I really hope they fill up the theater for Cam's panel. Because I'm like, I don't know how well this will fill it up.
Sometimes it's wild sometimes how that'll play out. I remember the panel I was on at PAX East 2020 with that our friend Scott over at Irrational Passions was kind enough to invite me on that was like RPG tropes or whatever now Reb has gone on to to do all sorts of crazy stuff and is at IGN and stuff like that, but she was probably like the biggest of the names on the panel. The rest of us are just like silly dummies.
I think she was at GameIndustry.biz at the time.
Yeah, she probably was. Yeah. But yeah, it was like I was amazed. Like it's not always about like who's on the panel that gets you. It is like, oh, people are interested in this idea and want to talk about this idea, want to share their thoughts on this idea. So Kingdom Hearts, a very passionate fan base. I fully expect that you could have had the complete opposite kind of title of that, as long as Kingdom Hearts is in it, and people are going to show up to, either be validated or argue about that. So,
Yep.
That one I imagine in particular was like a bunch of Kingdom Hearts fans that wanted to either argue and be like, no, it is very complicated, or show up and be like, right, it's not complicated. I need to tell this to all my friends.
It was the perfect amount of chaos and the perfect amount of it being like it was just enough nonsense for it to be really, really good. Some standout moments were Master Xehanort. Xehanort is an old man on a beach carrying a shirtless young boy. That's how Kingdom Hearts as a story starts.
Yep. Sure.
And it was just really, really good. It was funny is that everybody spent so much time on the kind of like non-mainline games, like 1, 2, or 3. They spent so much time getting into the weeds on their like non-mainline.
I mean, that's because that's how they have to try and make that argument, is because the truth is most people only played the mainline games.
Yeah.
Myself included. I've started to play Chain of Memories a couple times. I've never gotten through it. I've played the mobile ones that they've like turned into just here's a video, just watch the video kind of thing of all the cutscenes. So I've seen those, but yeah, like I've still never played the one with Aqua.
Birth by Sleep. Oh man, that was really good.
Which is like, that's the one I should go back and play because I've heard really good things about it. And I've bought all of the Kingdom Hearts collections multiple times. PS3, PS4. If I've probably got the all-in-one collection somewhere now. But it's like, that's where you get into the weeds of like, okay, Nomura's just bonkers, and I don't want to follow him on that journey. But that's how you have to follow him on the journeys if you want to, make that argument of like, it's not a complicated story.
Yeah. Well, I famously say you can summarize all of Kingdom Hearts in a single sentence, which is that it's a melodramatic telling of a conflict between light and darkness focused on and around a young man named Sora who wields a magic sword called the Keyblade.
Sure.
That's it.
Plus Disney, plus Final Fantasy.
Yep. You don't even have to add those into it, but you can if you want. You can add those like as an addendum, like, and it has a lot of Final Fantasy and Disney elements to it. There you go.
Yeah.
It's super simple, but it's when you get into the details that you're like, you don't understand. In order for you to understand my favorite things about this, I need to tell you all these details. And it's like, you don't need to.
Yeah. Are they still doing that podcast where it was like Cam and Alexa, and I don't remember who the third person was.
Jonathan Dornbush.
Dornbush, yeah.
Yeah,
along with Kevin is the one who I think was going through it for the first time, right? Kevin Diaz.
Yeah, they finished it, I believe.
Okay.
So
they did play through all the games and all
that. Because each episode was about like a specific game.
Yeah. Okay. I just lost track over the, like, I remember that being like a thing I think they were doing during the pandemic, and I just don't remember where. I remember at some point stopping seeing a lot of those tweets and stuff. So,
yep. They wrapped that series. It's really good. If anybody wants to ever check those out, they're good, like legacy standalone things to listen to.
Sure. All right. And then last thing I want to ask you about, just kind of circling back a little bit to like just how we kicked off of like, hey, how was PAX? How was all of like the miscellaneous downtime of just hanging out and seeing friends and all that fun stuff?
Not too many friends. I was really surprised just not seeing as many people as I was expecting to, I guess. Maybe like I knew how many people I knew were going to be there, but somehow in my mind, I thought there was going to be more. And it was less of like hanging out with people that I already knew and more about meeting new people this time around.
Yeah, sure.
I had a blast meeting new people. Day 0, I went, everyone else had like dinner plans. And like a lot of them were going to like separate dinners too. And so I was like, okay, cool. And like one of our roommates wasn't going to be in till the following day. And so I kind of had time to myself. So I went down to Pike's Place Market, which was, they were done throwing fish for the day, unfortunately.
Yeah, of course.
I took a lot of photos while I was there of like the city itself. I really got to enjoy Seattle as a city in my downtime. Not really doing too much, just kind of like I rented e-bikes. It was like $1 to unlock and then like 34 cents a minute, and getting between like different locations was like a minute or two. So super inexpensive way to get around and like save the hassle on my feet.
Save your feet. Yeah.
Yeah. Save my poor feet. Like I'm so happy that I did too, because my poor feet were like dead today. But they've had a good recovery. Overall, it was just like a great experience just checking it out. So I went down to Pike's Place. I went to, funny enough, I ended up going to a place that ended up being on suggestion from one of your friends, Old Stove. Had some fish and chips down there, had some Guangzhou wings that they did that were just like coated in Guangzhou sauce. So it was a little bit like that tangy, spicy Korean style of like, a Korean style of like tangy, spicy sauce that was just done on these wings. That was really great. I did the fish and chips, and it was just like fresh fish that was like caught that day, from Pike's Place Market, brought in and battered and fried and put on a bed of delicious fries for me. And they're like, so ketchup, but I was like, no ketchup, the whole like trying not to get diabetes thing. And they put me at a table. I wasn't on the patio. I kind of wish there had been room on the patio, but I had a table that was right up against the patio, and I sat on the side chair, so not even on one of the benches, so I could just stare out over the bay there and just enjoy the sunset. And it was one of the most enjoyable experiences I've ever had. I was by myself. I didn't have headphones in. I wasn't watching anything. I was just enjoying this atmosphere of this very busy bar behind me, a lightly populated patio, and just this open area where I saw like around the other side of the bay with all the forest and greenery. It was incredible. The downtown Seattle is just such a fun place. I told somebody, I was like, I don't know. I've never been to New York City, but for some reason I feel like this felt like I always thought New York City would feel like. And the person I told them to is from the back east, and they're like, I see what you mean by that. Like, it's not like this at all, but I see what you mean by like, yeah, you would like.
Any downtown is going to be like that. Any major downtown, I guess.
It's so
has that energy.
It's so opposite of Phoenix on every level like that.
I mean, well, yeah, that's there's also that, just the Pacific Northwest. And like, did it rain a lot while you were there at all?
No, it barely rained at all, which upset me because I know it rained here while I was gone.
yeah, we had some heavy thunderstorms and stuff like that. Yeah.
It was bullshit.
I joked with my folks. I was like, hey, it was nice to actually be here for this one. Because it rained a couple times while I was out the last couple times.
No, it was just like being in a place that's known for raining all the time,
right,
and not getting any rain at all. Although I will say, humidity wise, I was not prepared to deal with that level of humidity. It was like 60% plus humidity the entire time I was there.
Yeah, because you're right there on the water.
I did my like long sleeve shirt, sweater vest, like jeans combo.
You realize it was August, right? It's still the dead of summer.
I was not prepared for the level of like, temperature wise, it was totally fine. It was like in the 60s the entire time. But the humidity, oh my gosh, my sweater vest trapped all the moisture. Yep. And when I took off my sweater vest, it was like taking off a sausage casing. It was the worst. Oh my gosh, it was awful. Oh.
Yeah.
Like layering up is a problem there.
Oh yeah, and I don't think if I go back to shows, I don't think I'm ever going to go back and do the like sport coat dressed up kind of thing anymore.
No.
Like, I just want to be comfortable. I just want to be there, hang out with friends, see games, play games. I'm not looking. The ship has sailed on me like trying to be professional and getting into the industry or anything like that. It's just like, I just want to go and have a good time.
And so I actually had a fun time talking to some people because they're like, so what is your plan being here? I was like, oh, I'm just here for the love of the games. And they're like, what? I was like, oh, I'm like a professional. I work for a medical school. Like this is for fun.
Mm-hmm. This is my hobby.
Yeah, this is my hobby. I'm like, somebody asked me, so like, what are you? And I was like, so you're with an outlet? I was like, oh no, I'm not with an outlet. They're like, oh, I'm like, I'm independent. And they're like, okay, but like, what are you though? It was the guy from Bandai Namco that I was talking to.
I mean, that nerdy site is the outlet that you were there with, Ken.
Oh, that's true. That's true. Well, I tell people that. Sorry, I tell people like I'm with that nerdy site, and they're like, "What is that?" And I'm like,
exactly.
But I asked, and they're like, "What am I?" Well, I don't really say. It's not right for me to say that I'm like I'm part of the amateur enthusiast press anymore because I've been doing it for almost a decade. It's no longer amateur, and I'm like, but at the same time, it's not necessarily like hobbyist. Like I do take it seriously.
I mean, we are amateur in that we are not professional. We're not like getting paid for this and any of that kind of stuff. So yeah, I would still call us amateur, even though we've been doing this a long time.
That's fair. I just when I'm talking about myself though, and I guess this was
Sure.
part of it, me being there solo, is like, to say I'm amateur makes it sound like, oh, I'm just getting into this. But yeah, but I was talking to them and they're like, no, we get it. Like, and one of the guys is like, that's really cool that you're just like, you're here because you love it. And I'm like, yeah, I'm just here because I love it. And I get to do these things and have these awesome opportunities of like meeting people and going to these events and getting these appointments and stuff. Like, it's a really great opportunity. I was talking to somebody and they're like, oh, well, we didn't want you. I was like, well, I didn't have an appointment with you guys. And honestly, like, if I don't have an appointment, I shouldn't be jumping ahead of people. It goes back to that kind of like that, like old school, like when we wanted to get into the industry, when we were trying to do that, we always wanted to be as professional as possible. And I carried that through this time too, as well. There was some, of course, there was some scheduling kerfuffles. There always is every PAX. I got those all ironed out. I made every appointment work. Yeah, it was just overall like just a really awesome time. Even some of those like the Wizard 101, Pirates 101 appointment that I had, that was just kind of like not what I expected. And when afterwards I talked to some folks and they're like, yeah, it was like, and I'm like, oh, I heard it was like really awesome. And they're like, well, wasn't it? I was like, yeah, it really was. Yeah, you're talking to two people who are extremely passionate about making family focused content and something that families can do together that also is engaging in some way, whether it's the tactical combat of Pirates 101 or kind of the card deck building based battling of Wizards 101. I learned a lot, and it was a great time overall with that, whether it was that one or any other time I got to talk to a dev. It was just really, really cool.
Cool. All right. Any final thoughts before we wrap up here?
Yeah, it's expensive to go to these things.
Yeah.
That's the last one. I forgot how expensive it is to go to PAXs.
Yep. Indeed.
How about PAX at a cheaper place, please?
I mean, that's the thing, is it's not going to happen.
No, it's not.
It's like the cheaper one was San Antonio, and not enough people showed up, so they've stopped doing it.
Actually, turns out that's not why. I found out.
Oh, I mean, no. Well, I'm sure there are many reasons as to why they aren't doing it in San Antonio anymore, but it was also it was always by leaps and bounds the least attended, so I can't imagine they were making money on that PAX.
Yeah, but what ended up happening is like the stuff they were doing for that PAX is now at PAX Unplugged, which is somewhere else.
Yeah, PAX Unplugged is usually, I think, in like Boston as well.
Yeah, they do it there. I turns out there's like issues with Texas and like enforcers and policies and stuff. That was like a major reason why they dropped out.
That doesn't. I mean, I'm sure. Again, there were many factors as to why they stopped doing it. In the first place, it was they expanded to a place where they were trying to get like that middle of the country crowd, but they didn't have people on the industry side showing up because it was in January and they were, the industry didn't have anything to show, or they were, they had just done Game Awards and, end of the year, Game of the Year stuff. So it was not an optimal time for the industry to be doing a show in PAX. And so it was always like, Gearbox was basically always showing up because they were, right there in Austin kind of thing, and could make the trip. But, and I did get to play, I got to play the Switch for the first time at PAX South, a couple months before it came out. But yeah, other than that, it never had the same reach that, the other stuff did. So.
Yeah. Oh, I do have some video content of, so Summit Building, level 0 was video games. Level 2 was all tabletop, and it's this massive floor of tabletop stuff. Mm-hmm. And I was really impressed by like how much tabletop focus there is for West. Yeah. Which was really cool to see. And
there's always a big old thing at East too, but it's like it's in a segmented part of the expo hall that we just never went to.
I mean, I always walked through it because it was the easiest way to walk across the place. But what I was impressed by was, and why I think PAX Unplugged in Boston is such a big thing, is it lets them do that focus on tabletop on the east side that way. Yeah. It was just really cool to see. Like I was just like really blown away by it, and also like walking around and seeing like level 3 I think was like dedicated for like Dungeons and Dragons and live play and like fan run stuff, focus stuff like chill rooms or game rooms and stuff like that.
Yeah, so Acquisitions Inc. was there, as they often are.
Oh yeah, they had a big show that I never go to because I stopped following Acquisitions Incorporated after like third show. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to look and see. I saw they PAX Unplugged in Philadelphia.
Oh, there you go.
And they
Okay.
just announced, I think today, that Matt Mercer is going to be their storytime speaker this year. So
Cool.
very cool. And yeah, I imagine like PAX Unplugged being the like tabletop centric, not video games, all that stuff. Hence the Unplugged. I imagine that's where you're going to see Critical Role probably reveal or show off Daggerheart, their new game system that they've been teasing for a while now.
Yep.
Some more and stuff like that.
I will say another thing. I wish I had booked an appointment with Larian Studios.
Mhm.
I kind of like didn't bother with it since I played Baldur's Gate 3 already.
Yeah.
I really wish I had because there were some really cool photo ops they had there.
Mhm.
And then also let me go the photo ops there were really interesting, especially in like Nintendo Live.
I mean, I saw pictures and stuff of because at Larian they had they had like a mind flare going around, and I think if you said what was it, if you said like it was one of the things from the game, authority or something like that.
Yeah.
I think you got something. They were giving something away, but you also had an Astarion and a Lae'zel there at the booth, along with a big old Nautiloid, I want to say.
They did, yeah. The Nautiloid was on
pictures
top
and
of
stuff.
the like Baldur's Gate tower stuff they had.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Well, very cool. You thinking you're gonna want to go back again next year?
Absolutely. Yeah, I had a blast. Also, that's who it was. Autumn Ivy. Autumn Ivy, who's a cosplayer, was there as Karlak, and she had a glowing heart piece. And I really wish I had like. She and I follow each other on Twitter now. Also, by the way, I'm kind of back on Twitter.
I saw. Yeah. I saw you made your return.
Yeah, my return.
Hey, yeah, you need to be. It's nice to be connected to
Yep.
people.
I didn't realize how unconnected I've gotten from people in the like that I already knew in the industry. That how many people didn't realize I was going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm back on Twitter. Is it full time? Absolutely fucking not.
Yeah.
The app will never be reinstalled on my phone. Fuck that shit. However, it's on my browser, so I will be coming back around for that. But like not on a regular, like a semi-regular basis. Basically, is what I'm willing to do at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I saw her. I imagine it was her because I saw like the really cool Karlak like. Oh, does it light up? And she'd be like, damn right it lights up.
Yep.
And seeing the video and stuff like that. So that's very cool.
Yep. No, she's awesome. I follow her on TikTok, and I followed her for a little while on TikTok. She's just really, really cool. Does a lot of really great cosplay. So she's really cool. And she followed me on Twitter just randomly because I retweeted her thing, and I was like, cool.
Nice. Very cool. Yeah, it was it sounds like it was a fun time.
I will make a priority next time to see more people that I know are like living in Seattle. To those who I reached out to who I was like, we should definitely see each other, and kind of like never follow through on that on me 100%. I want to like next time make a bigger effort to see less game appointments and see more people appointments.
Yes. This is what I'm saying. Go spend time with the people, because that's where you get the memories.
Yep.
I'm glad you had a great time. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, like where it falls versus where my work conference falls now just tends to be like well, if I end up going to my work conference and my work conference next year is in DC, it's like, well, DC is another place I'd like to like probably stick around and do some touristy things on, but also try and just plan for doing that. And hey, yeah, we've got PAX East in the spring, so maybe we'll make our return out there to Boston too. Well, very cool. All right, well, that is gonna do it for this episode. Thank you, Cam, for running through all this stuff. You follow Cam now back on Twitter, as well as other places at RevCabot. Anything else you want to give a shout out to there, Cam?
Yeah, I want to give a massive shout out to just everyone I met at PAX East, who followed me, who I followed back. There are so many of you. This is already almost a 2-hour long podcast, so we'll probably not like cap it, but all of you are amazing. Everybody who I did karaoke with, everybody who I saw at the Sheraton, everybody who I saw at everywhere else. You are all so awesome. Thank you so much for helping an old man make his way back into things. As was my joke. Thanks so much, you young kids. You're all so fucking awesome.
Cool. You follow me at Trevor J. Starkey on Twitter, and pretty much only Twitter. I mean, I guess I'm also on Instagram, but I mostly just lurk in all the places now. But yeah, things you can check out from us. So from me, we have Baldur's Gate 3 stuff. I took full advantage of Cameron not being here and recorded all the way up through Act 2, the end of Act 2 of Baldur's Gate 3. So I've got plenty of Let's Plays for that coming out in the weeks ahead. Tuesdays and Thursdays, and then maybe some bonus episodes on the weekends or something like that. And then we may also have some co-op stuff coming up, depending on how well we can edit it together and tech-wise. But also, as Cam alluded to, he has apparently a lot of footage and stuff that he'll be uploading in the days and weeks ahead as well. So stay tuned for more of his coverage from PAX West 2023. And then we also should be back. Maybe, I guess we probably should try and start coordinating getting back with that D Plus show. So maybe we'll reach out to Logan, see if he's able to join us this week. But yeah, stay tuned for all of that in the coming weeks. You can follow all of us over at That Nerdy Site or go to thatnerdysite.com for all the latest from us. Once again, if you liked what you heard, please remember to like, subscribe, rate, review, share the podcast with your friends, all that fun stuff. As always, thank you for listening. Stay nerdy and be good to each other.